It's Don here from the board. Thanks for coming along and checking out this video. So today, I think I'm going to be building a Boardwalk keyboard with a custom wood case. So I do want to apologize to the owner of this board because I've actually had it for a really long time and I've just not had the time, unfortunately, recently to actually sit down and build the complete keyboard. There was a couple of steps involved, which you would have seen in a previous video in regards to putting together some holy pandas, and that's because those holy pandas were to go into this particular keyboard. So let's switch over to the desktop and have a look at what we've got in here. Now the first thing I suppose you might notice is my desktop, the lighting might be a little bit different. So I've actually purchased a light ring and it's sitting above the camera, so it's a little bit different to normal. Hopefully that will help improve the focus and things like that, because I know that I've received a lot of comments over the last couple of years in regards to that, and I don't know what I've just gone and done with my front facing cameras, affected by some light changes. Maybe that'll help bring it up, I don't know. I've just gone and stuffed it up. Oh, there we go, much better. And the other thing that you might notice, which I don't know is actually noticeable or not, is I've also changed microphones. So this is the first video I've done with my new microphone setup. I do realize that there's always going to be an audio lag between what's happening with my mouth and the sound, and it's because of how I have my microphone set up going through the mixer for other recording purposes. So you're just going to have to bear with it. I don't really want to try and play about to get that audio lag sync, but if anybody knows if there's a very easy way to do it in, say, OBS, which is what I use, OBS, Open Broadcaster Software, then please let me know. Happy to give it a shot at some point in the future. So here it is. I don't think there's any incriminating information in here. I can't remember off the top of my head, but if there is, well, I'll just have to stop and start recording again. So what we've got here is just a sack of holy pandas, which I have put together. Some of them, and some of them were actually put together by the actual owner. They have been speed lubed as well. There's the actual leftover parts from putting together the actual original pandas and the halo switches to become holy pandas. We've got some stabilizers that are going to go into that Boardwalk. There's the lube that was used to actually lubricate it, and we're getting to the more exciting part. So I suppose the first thing is that there is the actual case. Now it's got a brass plate in it. It's got a bit of marking on that, but I think that's just from the casting process. What I was told was that their son had actually dropped the case and caused it some damage. So let's just have a look at that. It's got some really cool funky carvings going on over there. I'm not quite sure. Okay, so let's just maybe put some of that back inside. There we go. And I can see the crack damage that they're talking about, which is unfortunately that over there. But it hasn't, and a little bit over there split, hasn't really affected the integrity of the case, I don't think. We've got some feet. It's a very sort of detailed piece in the middle. I'm not sure if that's... It feels quite light to be brass, but whatever it is, it's a bit of accent. It is metallic, so yeah, adds a nice sort of feature to the underside. Though that said, when you're using it, you're probably not going to see it very much. The front's got some really nice carving and milling patterns, and so does the sides. So overall, it's actually quite a sort of fancy case. I don't find it to be too pretentious, each to each own, of course, but there is a massive amount of wobble that it's actually happening right there, which is a bit unfortunate. I don't know if that's from the wood warping or it being dropped. I'm going to say it's actually from the wood warping, because you can kind of see it there that the wood's actually warped. You could probably shim that up by playing a bit with the actual feet, but there's actually quite a considerable amount of table wobble that's actually happening there. Now if we unpack what's in the bubble wrap here. So the Boardwalk is an ortholinear board, and of course to reflect that we've got the actual Boardwalk PCB and a really nice looking white painted plate. So like I said, it's ortholinear. The bottom row has a lot of options there. I can see that there's a bit of sort of flex twist damage that's kind of happened here. Hopefully I can maybe help straighten that out a little bit. And then let's just have a look at the PCB. So is this packet open? It's not even opened yet. Ooh. Okay. Well, that's good to know. We're gonna have to cut it open anyway. I think it's actually quite nice that it comes in a sealed thing. Not really had that experience before because most of them are just open-ended slips for the anti-static bag. Okay, so there's the Boardwalk PCB. Gonna have to be careful with reflections now. I have that very strong overhead light. Schoen's Mobile, Dollar Tacos, Unrelated Pick, and Alex at Pank. So the focus is really struggling there because I've also got the room light happening. Let me see if I turn the room light off, if that'll make a difference. This light ring thing already has a diffuser built into it, but I don't know if it's sufficient. Okay, so the room light is off, and now we're just operating purely from the ring light. Okay. There we go. Okay, so there's the names of those who are involved in creating it. The Boardwalk, we can see some underglow RGBs happening there. All the components seem to be surface mounted, which is nice. Over here we've got a reset switch. The traces look pretty good, well mapped, not auto traced by the looks of it. And we've got a USB-C port over here, which will be on the left hand side. So we can see that there's the left hand side USB over there. And then on the other side, the Boardwalk, it's a pretty simple logo. It's just like a promenade, a boardwalk, you know, it's wooden slabs that are put on a pier and by the seaside, right? Makes me think of Coney Island, which I have thankfully been to, as well as at my university that I used to attend. They've actually got a boardwalk down one end of it, which runs quite a way, and it's quite nice. Plants and stuff growing alongside and whatnot. Okay, so obviously the orientation is going to go this way, and we can see that the mounting points should line up okay. Yep, so we've got mounting points sit just fine, and of course we've got to make sure that the actual orientation for this is also correct, because we don't want to get the plate wrong. Although I think that's the correct orientation, because typically this side is going to be the one that people do weird arrows and stuff like that, whereas that's going to be pretty standard for left hand side. And I think that the mounting points should have no problems with that at all. Okay, so that's what the kit looks like, and also you can see the underside is they haven't really taken as much care to coat that or anodize it, because there's a bit of some kind of contact burn mark there. Bit weird. Rightio, so there is the actual kit. Like I said, I've got some holy pandas that are going to go into that, and then we're going to be putting in some clear wherever they are. There we go. I'm going to be putting in some clear screw-in stabilizers. Yep, the screws are in there. Okay, so I'm going to cut away, of course, to the usual typical time lapse, and then we'll be back at the end and see how it all turned out. See you very shortly. Alright, so we're back. I've finished putting this together. It took me about 55 minutes or so because I had something playing in the background while I was building it, and that was the time stamp on what I was watching while I was building it. It probably would have been a little bit quicker, except for the fact that you might have seen I had to get my switch puller out and pull out one of the switches because the housing on it wasn't actually clipping in all the way, and I fixed that. As well as the fact that I had to go rummaging around for a USB cable. I actually don't use USB very much because my phone, for example, is still a micro, whereas my wife's phone is a USB. So I tried to use her cable and it was just a charging cable, and then I ended up digging the USB-C cable out of the AN Pro 2 to actually hook it up to make sure that everything was working. So I've just flashed it with the default from QMK configurator online, which may or may not be what the owner of this keyboard wants, but they can always take it out and reflash it. In terms of the fit, it's quite snug. It looks really nice, and once the keycaps are on it, I'm sure it'll be perfectly fine. The only thing that I've kind of realized with this is that is super deep. So if you've got a really difficult to plug in connector, like, I realize this is not the right type, but it goes in quite far. It goes in quite far indeed. Like, you'll see how much depth there is on that to actually get to the PCB. So I would recommend that if you were using a case like this, that you would probably need, but I would probably recommend having one with a quick disconnect, those two part cables that you would go into here, and then you could actually connect it external to that and just leave that connected. And yeah, that would probably be the only thing that I have major issues with. There's 4 mounting points on this. The additional mounting points here are not visible through the actual Boardwalk PCB itself. I don't know if the plate would have allowed it had the PCB actually shown those mounting points, but it's more than, sufficiently sturdy as it is. Now, because I'm not going to put a keycap set on it, I'm still going to give you a typing sample just on the switches, and we'll see how that goes. So I'm going to bring the microphone over and try not to crash the microphone on it. Okay, so this is the Rode NTR. It's a ribbon microphone. Hopefully I'm using it correctly in the context that it does actually have a locking pin that they recommend that you're supposed to lock it when you move it, but I don't know when they say moving it every time you move it, because I have it on a boom arm. So we'll see. If I kill it, I kill it, but hey. Alright, so just some switch mashing on a Boardwalk. Now I'm going to say that's probably not truly representative because of the fact that there are no keycaps involved, and also because of the case warp, you're getting that issue of it wobbling on the actual table surface. So, you know, there's not much I can really do about that for this particular situation right now. Now I'm just gonna readjust the microphone again. Okay, come on, back to focus. There we go. Overall, pretty easy to work with kit. The plate was a little bit tight in some of the places, but you know, with a bit of a jiggle and push through, it is a little bit daunting for me sometimes to push very hard because I'm afraid of damaging something. But for most part, I only had one switch, which was that one there, that I didn't get the pins aligned right when I pushed it through and it flattened one pin. But that's why I needed the switch puller, pull it out, and also straighten that one besides the housing, I think, which was one of these ones that wasn't sitting flush. Soldered nice and simple, nice and quick, flashed with the reset button perfectly fine, and you could see that the underglow was working. Unfortunately, I've already packed it away, but with this case, you're not going to see a lot of underglow coming through the case. So you're really going to be reliant upon the little gaps between. But because it's on the other side of that PCB, it's not going to be very much at all. Yeah, you know what? Let's go and dig out that cable again and just power it up. Sometimes I don't think things all the way through, do I? Okay, so there's the cable. It's gonna oh dear. So I don't think there's actually enough clearance for my USB. Oh yeah, so there's an issue right there. So I'm not going to take a tool to this, but I had suspicions and now it's confirmed. You'll see that my cable is at an angle, but it's not seated all the way in because the actual position of the socket is too close to the wood. So that's just getting the tip into the actual socket. So if we just come up and have a look at that a little bit closer, there's insufficient clearance to that. Now, there's not really much gap, so let's see if I can fix that. I'm just going to loosen these screws and see if it'll shift a fraction of a millimeter over as much as it'll let me. So that's hard flush now on the right hand side. Will that make enough difference? Now it's wood, so at least it's relatively easy to be able to get in there and sort of clear that out. No, it's still contacting and it's still causing the cable to go in at an angle. So I can't even show you what it looks like with power because this USB cable, which, you know, there's nothing terribly special or different about that one. It's not terribly fat either. So you're going to have to take something to that side, to the left-hand side of that space, and scoop it out a bit more to give you the clearance to get the cable in. So that's actually a little bit disappointing that's happened. But you know what? The case makers can't really take into account every single potential keyboard that's going to be put into it and where the exact positioning of that USB socket is, as long as it's kind of in the general space of where they had thought it was going to suit and fit. Okay, well, there you go. That's it. That's the Boardwalk set up, and it does work. You just got to be able to get that cable in. Alrighty, well, thanks very much for checking out this video, and of course, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and that share button if you want other people to check this out. And don't forget that we also have a podcast series called the Board Podcast, where I attempt to talk about keyboard related things most weeks. So, yeah. Until next time, happy clacking.